Hey, take just a few minutes and just kind of introduce yourself. Let everybody know who you are, where you serve now, and a little bit about your background.
Okay. All right. My name's Rich Richards. Well, it's actually Richard Richards. There's a whole story behind that, but I go by Rich. I'm serving currently, been nearly 2 years now with Louisiana Baptist University. I serve as Greg Lyons' executive assistant here, help around the campus, help make sure things are organized. Pastored for 23 years in Sierra Vista, Arizona. Served a military community there for all of those years. And I did serve for a few years as a BBFI approved missionary to Mexico, as well as did some border work in Nogales, Arizona. Started a church there and served along the U.S. Mexican border for about 7 years.
Wow, so most of your time has been in the desert. So
Yeah.
how does that kind of shape you? You enjoy the desert?
Well, I was born in Phoenix, and outside of about um, 6 to 8 years, my dad was career military, so we ended up overseas on the island of Guam, Midway Island, Northern California. Um, but that was from the time I was around first grade, kindergarten, first grade, to the time I got out of eighth grade. He had retired. He served in the military there in those years, and after he retired, spent the rest of my life in Arizona. Um,
Hmm.
I'm a Arizona native. My great grandparents homesteaded in Arizona, so
Oh, wow. So it is
been
a long
around for a
history.
while. Right.
Long history. So you just completed a book called Meditations in the Psalms of David. What was it that inspired you to write this book?
Um, my wife mainly. I never considered myself a writer. I never really considered myself to have a whole lot to say, but she encouraged me. She said that she thought that writing a book would be of value to somebody. And so she's really my inspiration in doing so. Without her, I doubt if I would have even taken the challenge.
Hmm. That's good. So talk about for a minute all of the index cards you've shared with me and showed me some of the index cards that go into the background of this book that you put together. Talk about that for a minute.
Well, when I pastored, I thought our Wednesday night services were more of a devotional type service, just preparing people for prayer. And so I went through the Psalms. I put my outlines on a 3x5 card. Each Psalm had its own 3x5 card. Of course, with the exception of Psalm 119, there are several in that one. But I hand wrote my notes all on that, and I had a stack of 3x5 cards. Still have that, and I went through the Psalms over the 23 years I spent in Sierra Vista, probably three times, maybe four. And that's actually the basis of this whole book are those 3x5 cards.
Wow. So it was almost exactly a year ago that you were part of the first Elmertown School of Authorship, which is a class that was offered there at LBU. Uh, Talk about how that class or that seminar kind of helped you take the next steps to actually getting this book finished.
Yeah, well, what that really did, and again, it was my wife telling me, you have to take this. So, because she really wanted me to do a book. And so I chose to do it. And what the class did for me is it really helped me to focus on the fact that what I had to say really does have value, that it might not be for everybody, but somebody might be touched by it. And then it helped me also to really gather thoughts and get them focused into one thing, and to begin putting that down on paper, that focused thought on what I'm going to write about and how I'm going to do it. It helped me with all of those things.
Yeah, take a couple minutes and just kind of share what I call the 30,000 foot view of the book, kind of an overview. You don't have to go into detail. What's this book all about? Obviously, it in the Psalms and the Psalm of David
Mhm.
were a part of. But kind of give us an overview of it.
Well, I do it from the aspect of David. He was a shepherd, he was a warrior, and he was a king or a leader. And so I look at David as being, growing into the position of a king, beginning as a shepherd and then moving into the warrior position and then into the leadership position. And of course, I don't break the book down in that order. I use the individual Psalms, and in those individual Psalms that he wrote, I try to um, help people understand the situations that he was in, whether it was during his time as a shepherd or as a warrior, as a king, and hopefully with that sort of focus and with each of those things in mind, as the person looks at each of the individual psalms, they'll be able to relate to what David may be going through at the particular time that prompted that psalm to be written.
So this is primarily a devotional book. How is this book different than maybe another devotional book? And then also, there's been lots of books written on the Psalms. What perspective do you take, or how's it maybe different from another book written on the Psalms?
Well, I guess it's different in that it's taken from my personal point of view, I guess, my military experience. And I don't recall reading anything on the Psalms that was from that particular perspective. And it's, I guess it's different from that point of view. I take personal stories, things that I experienced, things that other people experienced, and try to relate it to the time in David's life that prompted him to write that particular psalm.
Talk about your experiences. In this book, you share a lot of personal experiences, especially in your time in the military or things that you've seen. Was it hard to be that transparent when you were writing this book?
No, it wasn't, because that's my testimony. I'm more than willing to share my testimony and share with people where I came from, the struggles that I had, the attitudes that I had. Many today question God. Well, that's where I was. I questioned God. I questioned the very existence of God. I tried to find things to, I don't know, replace God through drugs, alcohol, music, people, the whole gamut, the things that the people of today even struggle with. And so um, anyone ought to be willing to share their testimony and not be embarrassed as to where they came from, because that's where God found me, and that's where God finds everyone. And that's where Jesus saves us in from those places.
How much did your military background play in talked about your perspective, but how much did your military background, how much did that come through in the book?
Growing up, all I knew was the military because my dad was in the military. And even when he got out after he retired, the military was still an important part. I've got a brother or two brothers that are both retired military. My grandfather was in the military. Of course, my dad. I've got a stepson who's in the military currently, and seven nephews that have served or are serving right now in the military. And so, from bringing the uh, idea of the military into the Psalms was a pretty easy thing for me because it's where my experience is. I serve now as a chaplain for the Floyd Baxter Red River Detachment of the Marine Corps League. Been serving in that capacity for a little over a year now. Since my wife and I moved here to Shreveport, I served as the chaplain for the Lake Havasu Marine Corps League detachment when I was there. And then prior to that in Sierra Vista, I was the chaplain for the Thunder Mountain detachment of the Marine Corps League. And so the military, I've stayed involved with veterans and served with veterans and served in the military and had come from a military family.
Hmm.
So,
Do you think, as you've read through the Psalms and as multiple times you wrote this book, do you see David going through some of the same struggles that some men that serving in the military now are struggle with, or men that have served in the military they're struggling with? Do you see the correlation between what David experienced and what our military today experience?
well, most definitely. I'm with the writer of Ecclesiastes, and that there's nothing new under the sun. And the experiences that we have today are similar to the experiences and emotions that people had hundreds and even thousands of years ago. David's no different. David truly was a man after God's own heart. He's the sweet psalmist of Israel, but he had human struggles just like we do, and I believe that the struggles that he went through and the struggles that he shares within the Psalms are the same struggles that we have, and they can be related today very well.
You end each chapter of the book, of each devotional, with a self therapy section. Why was it important for you to include that in the book?
Well, one of the uh, veterans that I served with was Purple Heart recipient by the name of Jim Cone. In fact, he is one of the endorsements I got with the book. He was the commandant of one of our Marine Corps League detachments, or one of the detachments I served with. And he has written several books. One book was called Time in the Barrel, and he wrote about his experience in this area of Vietnam called Con Thien. Um, and he was a tank platoon commander there. Uh, and he spoke of, after he got back from Vietnam, that the only way that he could relieve himself from the horrors that he experienced was by sitting down and writing. And he referred to that as a sort of self therapy. And he said that eventually the losses and the experiences and the various things that troubled him began to fade, and he was able to have better relations with people as he was going through that exercise. And I thought that would be possibly what motivated David to write, as God inspired him, that God used the Psalms of David as he wrote as a sort of self therapy for himself and help him through those horrible war experiences that he had. And the very fact of death that he saw face to face. And so as he wrote, I'm sure that God relieved him of the things that he was writing about. And just as Jim Combe was relieved of the horrors of war as he wrote, I believe that we as individuals can relieve ourselves of a lot of issues and problems as we begin to think about them and write them down and seek ways for God to help us through them.
You also included, along with the self-therapy section, a place where people can journal on each after each devotional. Why was that important for people to write down and use the book not just as something to read, but to interact with?
Well, I believe that's the best way to really get serious about dealing with God. We can, we oftentimes read something, we think about it for a moment and say, God, help me to do this. And then we walk away and we forget about it. If we write it down, it's going to make us think about it a little bit more. And I believe that it'll help us turn those issues over to God in a better way than just thinking about it for a moment, but actually expressing our thoughts and our feelings and our emotions before God and helping us to be relieved of that as He begins to uh, share with us through His Spirit how we can overcome those struggles.
So who do you see as the ideal audience for this book? Who when you wrote it, who did you have in mind to be the reader?
Well, I had veterans in particular in mind because I am one and I enjoy serving veterans. Um, I know some of the veterans that I've worked with. I've dealt with veterans from World War II all the way to present, and some of the guys that one in particular that I worked with closely was a Korean War veteran who was at the Chosin Reservoir who experienced some very serious things. He would tell me that I can still see the face of this individual that I lived and he didn't, and how do you deal with that? And so I would direct him to the Psalms and talk to him about what David experienced, and so pretty much veterans are is who I'm directing this to, but you don't have to be a veteran to really get a blessing from it, or to receive something from the Lord in it. I think there's other stories within it that others can relate to outside of the realm of the veterans.
Yeah, I agree. I think I love a book this I won't say targeted, but that veterans can relate with in a great
Mhm.
way. But it's something that everybody can be impacted by. So,
Mhm.
kind of how can pastors use this book as a resource for those in their church? And then, kind of second, kind of similar, how can chaplains, those that are serving as chaplains right now, how could they use this book to help those that are serving?
I don't have an answer other than just give it to them. I don't know. Um, I, I do think it'd be a help to pastors if they have veterans in their churches, especially those that might serve a military community like I did. We would go through we'd have a church change every 3 years as the Army PCS people in and out of Sierra Vista and Fort Huachuca there. Um, and I know in dealing with veterans, there's a lot of veterans. I used the various sources of material to pass on to them to help them when they got deployed. They would have to leave their families and be deployed. And I think that if a pastor is serving in a military community, this is something that they can hand to their military people who are being deployed to be able to use while they're gone separated from their families. I believe the chaplains might be able to use it if that chaplain is deployed and he's dealing with veterans that are deployed, can use it in a similar fashion. And then just the normal, you might say, church that maybe isn't part of a military community, but does have veterans. There's veterans in every church. I asked those in my church this past Sunday, who are veterans here, and I was amazed at the number of veterans that raised their hands, wishing them a happy Veterans Day. But there's veterans in churches all around, and I think pastors could use this, that would benefit those veterans that have experienced a lot of the things that I experienced, but more importantly, that David experienced and wrote about.
So writing this book and going back through the Psalms in pretty good detail, how has it impacted you personally?
Well, it's helped me, drawn me closer to the Lord. Helped me. I took these outlines and in fact, typed them out as an outline off of my 3x5 cards. And then to sit down and just to try to summarize each psalm is basically what I tried to do, was summarize what David was dealing with, what he was talking about. And it really brought a lot of the psalms to, I guess, made them more real to me, you might say, made David more real as a person to me, and I think made me understand God a little bit better, in the fact that David, with all the flaws and the problems and the issues that he had to deal with, God still looked at him as a man after his own heart, and God still looked at him as a musician and a man that wanted to sing praises to God. And I can see myself a lot in that. I think it's made me even sing louder in church, you might say, as we have our worship time with the Lord.
So this book covers, I believe it's 78 Psalms. Maybe it's how many total out of the 150. So when are you going to finish the rest of the Psalm? What's the next writing project? You have something else in mind down the road?
It's already come.
Do I need to call Jill and ask her?
It's kind of, I've already been thinking about that, and kind of like, this is the rest of the story or something,
Right.
The rest of the Psalms. And I've already considered doing the rest of the Psalms with the exception of Psalm 119, and then do a whole separate book on Psalm 119. So that's kind of in my head now. I feel like it's incomplete with just the Psalms of David. And so maybe in the future, and my wife might have to take another cattle prod to me to motivate me to sit down and do the rest. But
yeah. Well, I believe it's a great book. I believe it's going to be a great help and a resource to churches, to chaplains, and just anybody that will pick it up. So, speaking of that, when and where can people get a copy of this book?
Well, you can go to Amazon, and the Kindle pre-order is available right now that people can do. And then on November 18th, it'll be available on Amazon in both Kindle and paperback versions. So,
can we reach out to you personally and get a signed copy of a book?
Well, I don't know why you'd want my signature, but yes, I guess if somebody wants one, I can do that for them.
Well, great. Well, Rich, thanks for taking the time to join us and to share a little bit about this book. And I encourage everybody to pick up a copy of it. I think it'll make a great stocking stuffer Christmas is right around the corner
Yeah.
for any and all the veterans in your life. So, Rich, thank you again. Any last words?
No, but I appreciate it, Randy. I appreciate your help in it. You are my editor, so I really appreciate that and all the insight that you gave me, and I really appreciate the education I got from you through the Elmertown School of Authorship. Ed and Keith Bassham. Keith had a lot of insightful things to say, and I appreciate the Tribune. I know when I was a pastor, our church supported the Tribune, and I appreciate all that you guys do. So thank you very much.
Well, great. And we're proud to have Meditation of the Psalms of David as our latest book by Tribune Publisher. So, again, thanks for taking the time. Make sure to pick up a copy of the book.